Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Dr. Chris Hillman, data science director. I'm really curious to ask him about his journey to data science, his thoughts on managing people, and the importance of public speaking in his work. So welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Dr. Hillman.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for the opportunity. That's great.
So just from the intro that I just did, the short intro I just did, I mentioned that you have this interest in data science. So what motivated you to study that and where'd that interest come from?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in IT and analytics a long time, long before data was fashionable or data science was a thing. So I kind of fell into IT um, because I didn't have enough motivation to be a lawyer or an actual doctor. So, that's how a lot of people get into IT, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and I've worked in it for a long time. Where I kind of started working, it was data analytics and data mining. We worked a lot with retail data clustering and price elasticity and things like that. And it's kind of led on from there. And then when I joined Teradata, where I am now, that's when the kind of data science thing was really kind of kicking off, basically. I think there'd been that paper about data science. Yeah, and it's just gone from strength to strength, really. And we're now suddenly where, AI and Gen AI, you can't get away from it. Even my dad is asking me what Gen AI is. So it must be a mainstream thing by now.
It's funny you mentioned I was having a conversation with my mother maybe a week or so ago. It was her birthday, and she was mentioning the fact that she has to use a smartphone now as opposed to the flip phone she used to have. Because she actually still has an address book, a physical address book where she goes and gets her phone numbers and people's addresses. She just refuses to put it in the phone.
Actually write stuff down. Come on. That's
The thing has pages falling out of it and everything.
brilliant.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks, I guess. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
so you got a PhD in data science. So, I mean, congrats for going, all the way to getting this terminal degree. What was the motivation to get a doctorate?
Well, when I was a company I was at before, I'd actually applied for a reasonably sort of senior position at EY or Ernst Young as they were at the time in kind of it was actually in business intelligence, but it was in the data analytics field. And I didn't get anywhere, didn't even get an interview. And I said to the recruiter, I've got all the experience. What's this about? And he said basically they were looking for someone with a master's. You haven't got a high enough level degree. So I thought, if I want to get on, I have to go and do that. So I found this university, Dundee University. I actually live in London, but that's up in Scotland. That did a course for 2 years, kind of remote teaching part time, and it really suited me the way I worked. So I did the masters, and then I just enjoyed that kind of academic stuff so much. I enjoyed using my skills for things that weren't, so commercial. That I stayed on to do the PhD then, and that took me another 7 years part time. So it was a bit of a labour of love. I've still got the twitch if I think about it. But yeah, and yeah, that's really when and then I kind of gave up the academic side because it was too much at the time with the family and stuff. But actually, interestingly, doing the PhD work is where I really got into that kind of public speaking thing because you had to present your work quite regularly. And then every 6 months, we had a thing called a symposium where kind of the whole school of computing would be there, like 60, 70 people, and you had to present your work in front of them. So that was really my first foray into public speaking. Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. I didn't even know you could do a PhD part-time. Wow,
Yeah.
7 years. In other fields, I think in the sciences like biology and chemistry, and they can do 7 years full time to get a
Oh,
PhD.
exactly. Exactly. And if you're doing it in some kind of computer-based subject, like, mine was in real-time feature detection, um, it's much easier because you can have everything on your laptop. And I kind of travel a lot with work, so I was often, in airports and on flights. So it fitted in quite nicely. But yeah, it just went on forever. That's what we always say. It's a doctorate is not about how clever you are; it's about how stubborn you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully I could see that. So then now you have a PhD. Well, I'm not even sure. So you were working and then you worked for this job at EY. They said you needed more education. You ended up getting more education. But so now with the work that you do now, what does that entail?
So yeah, so I run the data science practice in our international region. So we're a fine American company. So we've got two regions, America and the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is obviously all exactly the same. So I it's fascinating. It's a fascinating region because we've got everything from, people struggling with reporting right through to automated smart factories, and my team are in there helping people to use our products. But yeah, it's a fascinating job, and it's very much, the kind of research stuff learning how to research is important because you've got to keep on top of stuff. You got to see the trends and see what's coming, and stay on top. But yeah, it is mostly working with things like predictive maintenance and anomaly detection and, all that kind of work that AI is very good at.
Okay. And then when you were talking, Dr. Hillman, it made me think about, the fact that you ended up getting this PhD or just graduate level education because of the experience you had applying for that job at EY. But I don't know how long ago that was, but if someone was interested in getting a job in data science now, how would you suggest that they prepare for such a job?
Yeah, so it does depend on the level you're coming in at. I found there's very few entry level positions around. You're almost expected to come in with a certain level of knowledge. So you wouldn't really be starting somewhere and learning what, training a model and feature engineering is. You kind of be expected to know that. So the education's got a lot better. There are undergrad programs in data science. We would typically be looking for people with masters to start. So it's really hard to get that experience, obviously. But yeah, it is good. And obviously, if you have gone that PhD route, you kind of start at a much higher level because you'd have had to have that experience to do the work. But yeah, I would definitely try and get on some kind of intern program, some kind of placement student thing to get a good year's experience before going to applying for a full role.
Okay. So what is it about a master's or a PhD in data science that prepares you more for a role in data science as opposed to just having maybe an undergraduate or maybe a different type of degree?
Different degree. I think it's a very complex subject. So even now, I get in conversations and somebody will say, talking about like an optimization problem, like the classic traveling salesman thing, and I have to say that's not my field of study because I never studied optimization and I don't intend to either. So I have to bring someone else in, and data science and AI sounds like one thing, but it's not. It's, natural language processing, it's computer vision, it's signal processing, it's lots of different areas. And to have that kind of mathematical background, it takes a while. It takes a while to learn it and get all the areas together. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So, I mentioned that you're a senior director, so I suspect that by having such a role, you likely manage other people. Is that
Yeah.
something that you looked to do when you first started working, or is it just something you fell into?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was always an individual contributor, as we, in kind of business speak, and I like that. I kind of held on to that coding as my skill. I thought if I can write the code, then I'll be indispensable. um, but then, gradually over time, you realize that it's like that force multiplier thing. If you're 100% busy, then that's 100% of you. But if you've got four people that are 100% busy and you're only 50% busy, then that's a lot more work getting done. And I don't believe that this idea that people are born leaders or born managers or born public speakers. I think if you've got the right attitude, you can learn this stuff. some people are natural, some people are genius, but other people, you can always learn these things. So over time, you pick up the skills. And yeah, I actually really enjoy managing. I enjoy managing geeky people, because I feel I understand them, and it's all about recognition and knowing that you did a good job, and everyone else knowing that you did the job and not everyone else taking credit for it and things like that. So yeah, it's a very privileged place to work with lots of smart people. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy working with geeky people too, and I think
Yeah.
for the same reason, I used to work as an engineer, and I speak to people who are like me in that sense, people who have these technical backgrounds and maybe aren't the best at putting their technical expertise in a way that non-technical people can understand. And I know
Yeah.
I basically I know where they're coming from. There's more than enough people out there that talk about presenting and public speaking generally, but do they come from the same group as the people that they're talking to? And I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, would I go and speak to a bunch of salespeople about this? Probably not. I ain't never sold nothing in my life. I've worked in sales. Well, I have no credibility with those people, but with technical people, I figure I do. So I fully accept what you're saying. You know,
Yeah.
now that you're as I mentioned, you're a leader of people. Is there what's one thing that you now realize is important in being a leader of others that you didn't realize when you started being a leader of others?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it really is for me, it's always that it's participative. It's not being like the old school general leading from behind. You've got to be in there with the team working. Yeah, participative management, I think, because otherwise you can't understand what's going on, and it doesn't mean you've got to be you've got to be kind of the worst thing, I guess, is to be that kind of micromanagement, being on top of people and saying them that's what. But yeah, actually to be involved with them is really key, I think.
Huh. Involved.
Yeah.
Participatory management. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So it's like, if I'm if one of the team is out doing some work with a customer, I'll often go on the first meeting, or I'll get them to invite me along at somewhere along the line. I help them out with like things like simple things like code reviews, or just have a chat through what they're doing. It's not that kind of, here's a job, come back and tell me when it's done or when it's gone wrong. You have to, yeah. And people appreciate that as long as you do it in the right way, as long as it's not sitting on their shoulder saying, what's this, what's that? Because that's worse. But yeah.
Interesting. Because now it's making me think differently about, I suppose, with various companies, what they even want in their management. Because it sounds like if you didn't have that background, you wouldn't be the best manager of these people at all. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
no, that's exactly right. If you didn't have the grounding and the background, and it goes a long way to getting kind of respect as a leader. If you know the subject as well, then people understand that not that you could do the job as well as them, but at least you know what they're talking about. Yeah. Um, yeah.
This is an interesting conversation, Dr. Hillman, because it's making me think about maybe it must be 10 years ago at this point. I got my PMP certification,
Right.
project management professional certification. And when I was getting it, I was doing training just to prep myself to take the test. And many of the instructors from that training course I did said that once you become a project manager, you should be able to manage any project. It doesn't even matter whether
Right.
you have the background of
Yeah.
whatever field you're working in. And I just found, I mean, I worked in medical devices, and all of the people that I knew who were project managers were people who used to be engineers who were promoted to being project managers. So they all had the background of the field that they were in. There was no one that came in from, let's say, construction and that was told to
Yeah.
lead a medical device project. It didn't happen. And so this
No.
idea that you have to have the background of the people that you're leading to lead them so that they even believe you or even want to listen to you. I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, and project management is an absolute classic when it comes to like building a predictive model. Um, we had a case where the project manager was saying, "Well, how complete is that task?" And the task was training the model. And I was saying to him, it's like, well, it's zero complete until I've done it, then it's 100% complete. There isn't an intermediary step, until it's right, it's not done. So yeah, but of course couldn't understand that. So it's a
That's
3 week
hilarious.
task. I've done 1 week, so it's 30%.
Yeah, they're all about those
Yeah.
percentages. It's like, nah, man, it's 0 or
It,
100. I don't know what else to
it's
tell
it,
you.
it's done or it's wrong.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's great. Okay, so Dr. Hillman, this whole podcast is all about the struggles or just getting better at
Yeah.
presenting and public speaking generally for people with technical backgrounds. So, how has becoming a better speaker benefited you in the work that you do?
I mean, it's that benefit has been fantastic for me because it's all about, people knowing who you are and understanding what you know and being able to see you as a kind of a thought leader. Um, because if you don't do that, if you only stick in your sort of, little area, then nobody will know who you are. So it's when if you can get a presenting slot at some of the big conferences like Gartner or Strata or there's one in London, the Big Data London one, then people will get to know who you are, and it's a real multiplier of your kind of skills. Yeah, but it's hard. It is hard. It's hard as a geek to do that because your natural place is sitting in front of a PC on your own. So to be up on stage is often, it's even now I still get nervous about it, which is yeah, people don't believe, but I do. Yeah, I think you have to.
So,
Yeah,
I'm curious then now, Dr. Hillman, is speaking, it sounds like speaking in front of others isn't necessarily something you've always excelled at, but what did you do to get
no.
better at it?
Yeah, so I think, as I say, the journey kind of started when I was doing the PhD work, and I think that's if I was to give a sort of a tip how to start out, the best thing is to start presenting to people that want you to do well, because it's you're presenting to your peer group, and they actually want to hear you do well. I mean, they might make fun of you afterwards, but they're not looking to be confrontational. Which if sometimes if you were to start at like a business conference, then there'll be lots of people with all different opinions and that's much more confident. You don't want that. You want someone who's looking for you to do well. Um, yeah, so that's definitely a good place. And things like meetups, you get geeky meetups in towns and cities. They're always after people to present. And if you were to stand up and present a Python notebook, they'd probably be happy about that. Yeah.
Dr. Hilbert, I'm laughing because, as I mentioned, I used to work as an engineer and I used to go to the technical type conferences as well. And but not only that, I've also gone to other conferences and been part of other groups that are more geared towards public speaking. And they talk
Yeah.
about what you just mentioned. People when you're giving a presentation, people in the audience want you to do well. And they think,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, that's not always the case. You mentioned those
No.
business conferences. I've been to those
Yeah.
conferences. I've been to those type of conferences where there might be two competing labs in the
Mm.
audience, and one of the people that's presenting is a part of one of those labs, and then the other people that are part of that competing lab during that Q&A session, oh, they're asking some
Oh,
questions.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like they don't want to see you do well.
I know. And on the questions, I always say there's two types of people who ask questions. One actually want to know the answer, and the others just want to tell everyone else in the room how clever they are.
Yep,
And just
100%.
let them do it. Just let them get on with
And they don't care,
it.
and they don't care if they make you look foolish doing
No,
it.
no, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
man.
true.
Yeah, sometimes it seems like
Yeah,
it can get really contentious sometimes. It's like, man,
yeah.
you all might have to go outside and handle this.
When like the first kind of public like conferences I did, I would purposely overrun so that there was no time for questions. You got 30 minutes, I'd take 35, and then the guy would be like, finish, you got no time for questions. So,
Oh
yeah.
man, you're that guy. Oh man, that's wonderful. So, when it comes to the presentations that you do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, so my thing yeah, don't wing it. Don't think you can wing it because once you get nervous, once your mouth starts drying up and you start stumbling over words, you've lost it if you're trying to make it up as you go. So practice it. I'm my my favorite hobby is playing guitar, and my old guitar teacher, he always said to me, why do you practice? And I was sort of saying it's to get it right, and he was saying, no, if you practice properly, it's so that you can't get it wrong. And I thought, oh, that's actually a really good thing to do. So it's exactly the same with presenting. If you've got a half an hour slot, I'd normally open like Word, put on dictate. Obviously, other word processors are available, but Word's got that dictate function, and then just talk to the slides as if I was presenting it. And then you can go back and edit that text and take out all of the like, so, all that stuff that's in there, because you'll be surprised how much there is. And then you can get your script, and that's the way I generally do it. I spend, maybe for half an hour speaking slot, I'd probably spend, probably 2 5-hour sessions getting that script right and getting the timing right and making sure, we had to, in our marketing message, we had to say this word operationalization. You don't believe how many times I practiced that to get that word out without stumbling over it. So yeah, that's pretty much the process. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my mother would like your presentations then. You know why? Because you're thinking about filler words. She was once listening to one of my podcast episodes, and she said she had to stop listening after a few minutes because the guests I had used so many fillers. She found it so distracting.
Yeah.
She just turned it off. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, that's a shame because that was actually a pretty good episode. It's unfortunate she couldn't get past the filler words, but I recognize that there are people like my mother who are very much distracted by them. And I figured if you were to practice, perhaps you'll use less of them. So
Yeah.
I believe you when you say don't wing it. I actually have a
Yeah.
friend who gives me a hard time over the fact that I practice my presentations before I give them, and he tends to wing it. But you can tell the difference. I really
Yeah.
think you can tell the difference because whenever he
Yeah.
talks, he uses a whole bunch of filler words, and he thinks he's the best presenter. You can't tell him nothing.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a US thing, but in the UK, we say like all the time. It's like this and it's like that. And you think, is it that or is it like that? And it really grates on you after a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, so definitely don't, because and it doesn't mean you can't be natural. You don't have to, like, if you tend to type stuff, people tend to really torture sentences and language, but that's why I like speaking it, dictating it, and then editing it afterwards. But I think you've got to be, as a geek, our superpower is our sort of slight weirdness, the personality that comes with being a little bit odd. And don't stifle that, because that what makes the difference between a slick business presenter, sales guy, and someone who's got the experience in the techie side. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you got to present the way that you would present. You're not trying to be somebody else, but try to be the best version of yourself as you possibly can. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, try to eliminate words like and 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 so and just those
Yeah.
type of words. I'm a big believer in trying to minimize those as much as possible. So kudos for you to even take track of or keep track of those type of words, those filler words. You
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that you get nervous before giving presentations. How do you deal
Hmm.
with your nerves?
Well, there's you got, in some ways it's you got to have your little routines, haven't you? I don't know if you follow the tennis. There's like Rafa Nadal.
Hmm.
Every time he serves, he has to do the twitch, the nose, and you have to have your little routines. I mean, the top tip that somebody gave me, and it was actually before exams to cope with exams, is eat properly. Don't, if you're feeling nervous, it's often you feel it in your stomach, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat. And don't eat rubbish. So don't fill up on like sugar and caffeine before, because it makes you twitchy then, and you feel it on stage. So yeah, definitely eat properly, and breathe. That's the other one. Yeah, breathe. And then, there was this whole thing about, I mean, you probably hear it from me, and I hear it from you as well. It's talking too fast. And the more nervous you get, that happens a lot as well. You tend to gabble and talk faster, and slowing down your speech is a good way of coping with nerves as well, because you can almost say a sentence and think, I got that right, and say another one, I got that right, rather than blast through it. And Yeah. I somebody gave me the tip of taking the first chapter of the book Moby Dick, um, and try and read that fast, and it will teach you to slow down because the language is so complex and the words are so tortured that you can't read it fast, and it gets you that right kind of cadence. It's a funny tip, but it works.
Okay,
Yeah.
Moby Dick. I don't even think I ever read that one, so maybe
No.
it's a book I need to get and try to read it slow. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting tip, and I firmly believe in breathing as well, especially you
Mm.
know if you do use a whole lot of shallow breathing, you might pass out. You certainly don't
Yeah.
want to do that when you're on
Yeah.
stage, because then people have to call a paramedic, and then now that's a problem. You don't want those issues. And then I've never even heard the one where you shouldn't have a whole bunch of sugar or caffeine. But I can see, just having a good meal before your
Yeah.
presentation. I can see how that could be helpful as well. And you certainly don't want to present on an empty stomach, because then you'll have your belly
No.
growling the entire time. You're thinking about how hungry you are.
Yeah. Different people are affected by caffeine and that in different ways, but I don't drink a lot of coffee. But if I was to have a few coffees and a pastry before a presentation, I'd be all kind of twitchy with it, and but it affects different people different ways. But yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. So for those who are watching or listening to this conversation, Dr. Hillman, and they want to get better at presenting or public speaking generally, what's the number one tip that you can offer them?
It's experience and practice. You got to do it. There's no substitute for actually presenting in front of people. And I don't mean like annoying your wife and friends by saying listen to this presentation, but get to the meetups. If there's company stuff going on or university going on, be the one who volunteers. If you're doing a hackathon, be the one who volunteers to present the results, because that's often a very it's competitive, but it's not a kind of a scary environment in a hackathon and things like that. So yeah, you just got to do it. You just got to get over it and do it, I think. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, just do it, just like Nike said. 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
I mean, on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm quite happy to take you know accept requests on LinkedIn. So yeah, that's good.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. You can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Dr. Hillman.
Thank you. Cheers.